All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or morning if you're watching this in the morning. Back for our third turn workshop this week, tackling the greatest of turns, the back to breast crossover turn. Joined again by the one and only Liam Willcox. This is now degraded to you just kind of leaning back now, and
Yeah, I was really thinking of trying to do something different, but I just couldn't think of anything.
Well, I think you might have peaked last week with your little rise in.
I know, I was thinking of setting up a desk like a news reporter and start shuffling some papers, but
Well, you can either do it like that, or you can do the people who get interviewed on the news now, which literally have bookshelves behind them. It seems to be a thing.
exactly. And then I need someone to walk in halfway through and get kicked out.
You're not allowed to be interviewed on Zoom on the news unless you've got a bookshelf, or you have your child walking in and your nanny pulls them out.
Exactly, yeah.
Didn't that guy get interviewed like a year later and the same thing pretty much happened?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's just really unfortunate.
He probably did it on purpose, didn't he?
I think, yeah, probably. He probably made a dime out of it.
Loves it.
Certainly made a meme out of it. Right then, so let's crack on. So, like I said, back to breast crossover turn, workshop 14. The weeks are certainly flying by. So let's get into this one. So just to quickly cover some key points from the last couple of weeks. Nothing new here. This has been covered already. But just in terms of goals for turns, obviously we want to be changing direction quickly and efficiently while maintaining our speed. That's one of the core focuses on turns. So we measure turns from 5 and 10 out. Sometimes it can be to 15 meters, depending on how much underwater you do or how old you are. But we've talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about how much of a knock-on effect a slow approach or a poor turn can have on a race. And last week we covered just some key points. Again, I'm not going to go into detail here because we've already talked about this a couple of weeks in a row now. But just kind of looking at how much time you can save yourself on varying distances. Obviously, this is a very specific term we're talking about today, Liam, with the crossover. It's definitely a make or break moment in a medley race.
Definitely on that one. Much quicker if you get it done correctly.
Absolutely. I think maybe instead of obviously we're not going through all of this today because we've already talked about it a lot. Let's skip kind of through to that first slide. Just from your perspective, Liam, it is quite a challenging turn. We talk about these things being almost make or break. How much of a difference can it make, and how, and where does the challenge for this turn come from? Do you think?
Definitely the position when you hit the wall. That's where the challenge is, because if you hit the position on the wall wrong from the start, then the rest of it and some of the kids will know this, especially when you do the turn wrong and they get stuck upside down and they just float in, just like, what's going on? So yeah, it's one where the approach needs to be spot on, but if you do get it right and it flows, it's so much quicker. It's a bit like, for example, doing like a forward roll in like a submerged turn. Like, it's just natural, it's quick. Whereas if you're doing like a touch turn on backstroke to breaststroke and you're having to go back around onto your front, you're trying to change that direction, which is a quite harsh movement. Whereas this kind of flows much better.
Absolutely.
So that's why it'll be quicker.
I think that's also kind of a key question, and it's a very good question to ask. I think for young swimmers, what are the main differences for you for this turn, the crossover, when you compare it to the old school simple touch and then reverse yourself round onto your front, or even and I'm not a big fan of this turn at all, but the touch and then the back flip motion that people do. I mean, that seems to be very popular, that backflip motion. Like, for you, what are the big components of the crossover turn that make it the more efficient and effective turn?
Again, it's just the flow of it, just the way of changing the direction in such a smooth way, rather than, like we said, being harsh. If you're touching and going onto your front, you're moving a lot of water with your body. Same with the backflip. Your legs are coming over, but you're still pushing down so much water as your legs hit the water and go in. So yeah, the main components will be literally just maintaining that speed around on the wall, and using that to leave off on. So
that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if anyone's ever asked that question of themselves or of us, then hopefully that gives you. I think that's a pretty simple answer, but pretty much sums it up. It's an efficient way to change your direction and to do it with speed and here's a word for you: fluidity.
There we go.
There's
Finesse
the word.
is back again.
Finesse. There we go. Yeah. How many times have we? I think we need to like kind of copyright that word to you.
Put that in the dictionary.
So an old lecturer of mine at university, he always used to say perspective a lot, and I like that word. And I used to tally up how many times he said it per session.
Got a little tip sheet going.
Yeah, I think he got to like 25 at one session. I was like, wow, that's a lot of perspectives.
He's done well. He's done well, that guy.
Really has done well. All right, so the structure of this really same as the other turns. We've broken it down into the approach, the rotation, the plant on the wall, and then the drive off. Obviously, we can talk a little bit about the underwater, but we have covered breaststroke underwater in a past video. So if you want to go and check that out, then go and find it. You should be able to have access to all of that at this point. And definitely before we start, one thing to mention is that the still images and the videos of this presentation have been taken from off the blocks. So if for whatever reason the videos don't play particularly well, and I know it can be difficult to record them sometimes, if you want to go and watch those videos, go and sign up to Off the Blocks, the British Swimming technique and information site. They're on there. There's a whole host of things in there for you to look at and to learn about. And I think now's a better opportunity than any, Liam, to go on there and just update your knowledge a little bit. So
have a look through, see, compare yours to theirs. Like we established last week, some of them are a little bit questionable.
Yeah, but then again, we've also established how picky we are.
Yeah, and it also shows, and there's normally two of them, so you can see the differences and you can see which one works better. Which I think always having a comparison is a great thing.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
and some of the videos they do actually have younger swimmers doing it, so you can kind of see it from a less developed athlete's perspective. You can watch younger swimmers do it, and you can see how it does look different. It doesn't look quite as strong, maybe sometimes not as quick, but as effective. Absolutely. It's just a good little visual tool to have.
Definitely.
Right. So just some core messages then to start with. In terms of approach, obviously we need to know our stroke counts going into the wall. I mean, it doesn't really change from a regular backstroke turn in terms of what the count is. And the second point that actually we talked about just off camera before was that I think learning to do the turn on both sides of your body is quite important. And that's kind of highlighted later where I've got the video for the left hand and the right hand, so you can kind of get a visual of what it's like. Liam, we talked about pushing off on the side, and I know obviously we're going to talk about that later, but maybe it's a good time now just to kind of put across that simple little rule about what side you push off when your left hand comes over and your right hand.
Yeah, so me and Chris were speaking beforehand, and I've always done this when trying to explain it to some of you guys as well. If you're finishing on your right arm, when you push off the wall, your body will be slightly facing to the right. If you finish with your left hand, you'll be slightly facing the left. So it's just a rule to go by, because when we see it later where you go through the turn, and I've seen this loads of times where people will finish on the left hand, they go around, actually do the turn nicely, and then they'll do an extra spin on the wall because they feel they need to go off. Whereas it's literally, as soon as your feet are hitting, you're pushing, but you'll be facing the way that you're, so right arm, right side, left arm, left side. Absolutely. It's just an easy way to, and if you do push off on the wrong side, you go, hold on, I touched my left arm, but I pushed off on my right. That's not right. So it's just a little key point which you could use whilst breaking down the turn.
Absolutely. And to be fair, I mean, you say it's only a small point. I think it's actually quite a good one. And I think if you think about it and you are really aware of what you're doing when you push off the wall on this turn, it's probably going to solve a lot of issues that we do tend to see. You're exactly right. People do the extra little spin, or they're just not sure which side to go off, and that could probably solve a lot of problems. Yeah. So the first stage of the approach, a couple of key points going in, and hopefully our video things aren't in the way of the picture at this point. So we're coming into the wall. Kind of two key details I put in there is holding the body line and a strong catch into the wall. So you can see with the swimmer here, that her body is nice and long. She's keeping it straight and stable. She's got that nice pulling action on her left arm under the water there, driving herself through. Her other arm's obviously starting to recover over, ready to get onto the side. And about midway through that stroke, she's getting ready to rotate herself onto the side through that last pull. And I think the big message there for me, Liam, is that you just got to hold your body line and just make sure that you are controlled going into that wall. You don't. Something I take note of when I see people turn, and this is on all the turns, well, freestyle backstroke and crossover, is when that final hand comes in to catch and submerge on the freestyle backstroke or to pull through into the crossover, that last pull can get rushed and it slips the water and a lot of momentum gets sapped away from the turn before you actually hit the wall. So I think really using that last stroke and being patient with it is quite important. What do you think?
That's why, again, stroke count is so key, and confidence. And, we see this a lot, not so much on freestyle because you can see the bottom of the pool, you can see where you're going in a sense, but on backstroke especially. And a lot of these people watching this as well, they'll know you'll slow down naturally because you're like, oh, where's the wall? And you don't know where it's to. But it's so key to hold that speed, hold that body line. Because if you don't have that part, then the rest of it will just go downhill a little bit. So, yeah.
And there's a simple fix to that. Count your strokes.
Yeah.
And it's easy to kind of allow that to be something that you just don't do, but it's very difficult from a coaching perspective to kind of go any deeper because there's not really much more depth to that. It's like count your strokes and just know what it is.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, guys, even if you get it wrong every now and again, maybe you're too far away, or like Liam said, maybe it's a little bit of a panic and you bail out of it because you're not sure about it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you just got to commit yourself to actually counting, and it's one of the only ways really to be able to build that.
Yeah.
To be able to build that confidence to keep that speed going into the wall. So obviously that's the first part of the approach. The second part, now we've got a split image on this, just to kind of highlight some key points. So I'll just run through the detail, Liam. And so when we start approaching that wall, we haven't quite hit the wall yet at this point. But as we go into it, we're reaching down with the hand under the surface to touch the wall. Our line of sight, so where we're looking, needs to be at 90 degrees to the side of the pool. So even though her head's looking slightly back to where she's come from in this particular image, she is pretty much looking towards the side of the pool. She's not looking down, she's not looking up, and her body's in a nice line there as well. 90 degree, obviously you want it to be at 90 degrees because any further you're going to get disqualified. And actually, you said to me before we started, that obviously rightly so, technically this is still a backstroke finish until you touch that wall. And that's when obviously you can initiate that rotation. So you've got to make sure that you are at 90 degrees or slightly less than that to make sure that you don't get DQ'd there. The arm by your side stays as nicely at your side as you complete your last pull. So the arm that's under the water there, you finished it off. It's staying there nice and neutral, not getting into too much trouble by waving around or anything like that. And I think, Liam, you've talked about this a lot in terms that just helps you keep a nice tight line. And it's that extra limb could have a tendency to start moving around.
Yeah.
Start throwing in some.
Yeah, it's like we said, if you're looking that way on them or looking straight down on them, they should be in a channel.
Absolutely. I like that. I like that, in the channel. That's good. That's very good.
I'm just here for the one lines. You know what I mean? The one.
Right. Sign of a genius, though. Make the simple, make the complicated simple.
I didn't say it.
Yeah, I'm just giving you all this praise, mate. Look at that. Some of the students go, it doesn't do that with me. It's because it all goes on Liam, apparently. me. So, last couple of points then. So as we start to really start initiating that rotation, and this is kind of where the image is that she's starting to really tuck her chin in a little bit, dip her head down into the water to allow those hips to stay high and to get the body coming around. And this comes into why I put the split screen on there, is that when we go into that rotation, similar to the backstroke rules in terms of finishes, you've got to have one body part out the water before you touch that wall, or as you touch that wall. And as you can see, the hips here are the part that's out the water, but we actually talked about this prior as well, that even though that's out the water, that's a very good position to be in. the high hips, they're at the surface, they can easily move, and you can easily start pivoting from the hips and the torso to start driving them through. If those hips are any deeper, you're just creating more drag. So actually the rule works in our favor in this particular instance.
Yeah, it's one of them where, you know, again, you don't want your hips to be so high up the water. That you know, nice and flush is spot on, really.
And I think just before we move on, again, I've used the phrase patience already in terms of that final catch, but especially this approach to the wall, I feel like it's quite imperative on the back to breast turn to maintain a lot of calm and poise as you go into that wall on this turn. It can be very easy to get ahead of yourself and to start driving yourself. You're getting your feet around too quickly before you've even made contact with the wall. And something that we'll touch on in a minute, you want to use that contact with the wall to help your rotation as well. So control is massive on this turn, especially in the heat of the moment in a race.
Yeah, there's one more, you know, there's one simple thing, and I think it's especially for the younger ones, the older ones, you probably know this, is when you're finishing on this, you are finishing the opposite, like it says opposite arm to what you normally would. So, and you know, we've seen this loads of times when kids do it for the first time, they'll go in and then they'll go like that. So they're finishing with the shoulder and the head like that.
Yeah.
It needs to be, you know, your arms basically cross your head, like over the top, pushing your head down. It's just a simple point, but I know some people get confused with which arm they need to finish with. So it's the one that goes over your head. So that last stroke, you're not rotating back across. You're literally just holding that rotation, maintaining that over onto the wall.
Well, again, like hopefully this image gives everyone a good idea of that top arm coming through. But also, like I said, if you go on off the blocks and watch the video, you can slow it down. You can do it frame by frame. You can watch it however you want to, and if it whatever helps you get it into your mind, really. Right. So moving on to the rotation itself. So again, like last week, I've kind of put in bold the key ones for this particular slide, and then the rest of them apply to the next one. So as we rotate, see our hand makes firm contact on the wall to make sure we can use that to aid rotation. And we've already said that when you get that hand on there, you can use the force as you press back to help you drive that body down and round. Because obviously the next point that we have here is forcibly driving the bend from the waist to maintain a high hip position. And it's difficult to kind of see that she's doing it, but you can see with the flexion of the wrist that she is physically trying to push herself down and through the water to get those hips up and get those feet around. Is there anything that you feel like you want to add to that one, Liam?
No, I think that's spot on with using the arm to help aid. But again, your head is so important in this. After you've touched, and your head's like almost looking across. I like to say, and it sounds a little bit different to some ways some people do it, but I say about pushing your head down, really tucking it in, because you are doing a forward roll as such. It is slightly on your side, but it is a forward roll, not backwards.
Absolutely.
So again, using that arm, pushing that head down and really tucking it in is going to really help speed up that rotation.
Absolutely. And another element to that, and obviously it mentions you're forcibly bending from the waist to maintain the high hips. And it's something we talk about, whether it's stroke technique or other turns. There's a general position that you see a lot in really good athletes, people who are technically strong, and that is this connection from their hips through to their neck. We talked about a lot in terms of how this area down all the way through the torso to the hips, how it works as one unit. And even though obviously this is not moving in motion at the minute, when you get to see the video, you can see how she's really using that core and her hips to drive those feet around, which then takes us into the next slide, where the key points on the rotation are obviously tucking the knees quickly as the head position passes under the hips. So you can see she's nicely tucked, her head's coming under. She's accelerating her feet to the wall as they go over the top of the hips. So you got the feet accelerating, and you got the head quickly tucking underneath the body with the hips as the central point. So essentially, it's almost like you're almost moving around on a fixed position, if that makes sense. And I don't know whether everyone can actually see it, but her hand, even though it's still not making contact now, but where this is on the actual turn itself, her hand would have been in contact with the wall quite for quite a significant margin of it in terms of using it to press through and then finally releasing it, ready to get that arm through.
No,
So
that's not too bad at all.
no, like I say, it's, you know, the video shows it a little bit, you know, obviously a little bit more of the process, but you know, hopefully it gives everyone a good idea. I mean, fundamentally, you can see how tight she's moving there. You know, there's not a huge amount of drag. Even though this arm's coming, the left arm there's coming around ready to create the streamline, this is one of the moments that I talked about where you're in danger of potential limbs moving around too much and limbs creating a lot of drag. Now, this is purposely moving into the streamline, but if you're not careful, trailing arms and releasing arms can get caught in the water if you're not really purposeful about how you're moving them and knowing which direction they're going in. So you definitely want to be aware of those extra limbs or those the excess limb space that's going on. And as we mentioned at the start, she's already starting to get herself into position there to start getting onto her right-hand side to push away.
Yeah.
You can already see that she's rotating through. All right. Last rotation slide, I believe. Yep, there we go. So getting to the point now where she's about to make contact with the wall with her feet. So her arms are no longer in contact with the wall. They're starting to get into the streamline position. And as her feet are approaching, her arms are coming together to make sure she's ready to go. And again, you can see this hip to neck position, nice and long. I mean, maybe it's just me thinking this. Maybe a little deep on her foot plant, potentially.
Possibly, yeah. I think
maybe.
You know, I'm hoping that she's, you know, slowly, as that arm's going to come in, she's going to drop a little bit to
I'm pretty sure.
Angle off a bit better.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. Maybe I'm just I'm trying to be too picky there, I think.
Well, you wait when we get the video going.
I know. It's the over-analysis going on here or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things, Liam, and I think we both feel the same way with this, that once it clicks in your mind how the movement needs to feel, and I think feel is such a big part of this back to breast crossover. Once you get the feel, you can generally start doing it to a level of precision.
Yeah.
But it does take time.
Oh yeah, it takes loads of mistakes. I think one key point on this slide, especially if you look at her feet position, they're slightly like this. Hence why we're saying pushing off on your right when you touch with your right, or, you know, left to left. Because when you do it, it is like a forward roll, but it is slightly, it will be on your side as such. It won't be directly straight. It will be more so on the side, like coming across. But yeah, it feels definitely a big factor. And I've done drills with the younger ones, and some of the guys will know this, where literally just holding them on a position where their hands across them, pushing their head down and getting their legs over, just so they get the motion of, okay, that I need to do, that's what I need. It feels like that's what I should be doing. And yeah, like you said, it's just feel. As soon as you click it and as soon as you get it in your mind, you're like, okay, that there, head down, right, that felt right. You know, it sometimes can feel awkward, but when you get it right, it's so much better. It feels so much better. You'll physically know that you are doing it right. Because it's one of them where if you do it wrong, you definitely understand that you're doing it wrong. Like, it'll be awful.
Yeah, you'll end up upside down or halfway up the wall or something like that. Yeah,
or some of them people, I've seen some people do it. They've literally turned and gone straight to the bottom of the pool. Or the best one, and I'm not going to name names, but they know who they're on about. You'll do your turn, and then you'll like crash into the lane rope. You're physically, I don't know how they did it, but they went over and they were literally like led out with their feet on one lane rope and their hands on the other.
You know what? I'm sure it happened to the best of us all.
Yeah, classic.
No, I think just before we move on, just honing in on the point you made about the feet position on the wall, it's definitely on this turn more akin to what the freestyle and the backstroke plant feet position is like. Yeah. When you compare that to like the breaststroke and fly, where you're looking at more of a 90-degree position on the feet. So yeah. Even though it's a small detail, guys, and this is kind of what we've talked about throughout this little series of turn videos, that, you know, you've got your simple process of approach, rotation, plant, and drive. You know, you can drill that into yourself, and you can know how you can then break it down. And then when we break it down as coaches as well, to where we focus on maybe just the approach to the wall, or like Liam just talked about, the feel of the rotation, that little drill you described, you can understand why we then isolate those areas and we hone in on that specifically. Because if we got you just to do the whole turn, you could be doing quite a few things out of sequence or not quite getting them right. And especially when you're younger and you're learning the skill for the first time, you just need to hone in on these little areas and just get the basic feel of it. Sometimes, a lot of the time, it's better to break it apart and then put it back together again before you go.
Again, like you said, we're breaking it down into little sections. Even, I've done it a few times. Even just doing a backstroke finish where you're finishing arm over, pushing yourself down, like, so you're finishing slightly down, like the first slide of this. Like, even just doing a drill, just doing a backstroke finish like that. Just so that you know how you're meant to finish, and then the next step. So yeah, breaking it down is the main point behind all of this, I think.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I mean, if I know from my perspective, if I saw someone actively experimenting like that to try and help themselves figure it out, I'd be impressed, and I'd be very much like, that's really good thinking. No, and this is the thing, and that's not because we haven't said to do it as coaches. That's you guys figuring out for yourself. And as athletes, as you get older, you'll need to learn this, that there are situations where we can tell you what it needs to look like and how it needs to, we can describe what it needs to feel like, but at some point you need to make it yours, and we can't do that for you. We might know what it feels like from our own point of view, but how we feel about it is not the same as how you feel about it. You know yourself better than we do.
Exactly.
In some respects, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure we know you guys pretty well, the amount of time that we end up spending with everybody.
Until you start screaming that you've been doing it right and you're stuck upside down, and I'm like, nope, that is definitely not right.
Well, there's actually, thinking of that, Liam, before, we're kind of digressing a little bit here, but that could be a whole other thing in itself. Like, and I think it maybe is a good point to make, that knowing how to take feedback is quite an important thing. Feedback, I think sometimes people perceive feedback as being, we instinctively want to get feedback that is good, and we want to know what we're doing well, which is absolutely good. You need to know that. You need to know that you're doing something right. But when you get feedback that wasn't quite there, this is how we want you to approach it, I'll try it like this. It can be a little bit challenging to hear it sometimes, but I know it's a pretty simple message from my perspective, and I know it'll be yours as well, Liam, that whenever we give you feedback, it's to make you better. We want to make,
100%.
We only ever will give you feedback if it makes you better, or if it is relevant. If there's no point in this, if you've done something really well, for example, that you do well and you've always done well, there's no purpose in us giving you positive feedback for it, because you do it already. I think that would be verging into different territory there. But yeah, like, always remember from us guys that any feedback we give you, technically is in this context, that it's always there to help you make it better and hopefully make you faster. That's the point.
And also, feedback is a two-way thing. We speak non-stop about feel, in doing technique, turns, whatever it is, and half of the time, and I know I've done this a few times, where you've done, a swimmer's done a start, straight away they come back up to me, how did it look? No, how did it feel? Because it may have looked reasonably okay, but to you may have been like, oh well, actually I don't feel I pushed as hard as I could have. Or it's a two-way thing, and that's why when me and Chris ask you how did it feel, or what did you think about it, it's the same with a race. Instead of just come back up to us and go, I don't know. Like, that is the most frustrating thing ever. You're the one doing the action. You know what I mean? So yeah, just remember, it's a two-way thing, and at the end of it, the outcome is to get make you better.
Absolutely.
So that's just the importance behind it.
And I'm not gonna speak for you, Liam, but I think what I'm about to say I think we're most likely on the same page. For myself and Liam, we'll only ever say things if we're only going to be honest with you. We're not going to. We don't like blowing smoke or anything like that. we'll tell you what. It's not about what you want to hear. We'll tell you what you need to hear, and we'll always do it in the most constructive way we possibly can. Sometimes if there's hard things that have to be said, you can't sugarcoat it. You can't make it any easier. It's just, unfortunately, it just has to be said. But like I said, I think it's always important for you guys to know that it's always coming from the right place from us. We will never condemn anybody for giving it a go. If you give it a go and it doesn't come off, you know what? That's awesome. That's great. You gave it a shot.
It's the same with feedback with everything. If you say something like, "I think I did that really, really well," and we looked at something, and we're like, "Well, we're going to say that. We're not going to, and there's nothing wrong with you thinking something different, or even just saying something that you're not too sure of, and we'll then talk it out." So same with everything.
Well, we're not dictators.
There we go.
Like Liam said, it's a two-way street for everybody. Anyway, we can move back to it again. Back to the plant. Right, so we've got that. We're getting to that wall. We've planted on the wall with the balls of our feet, as we've talked about with all the other turns. We don't want to be on our heels. We want to be on the front, so we can get some good movement coming out of there, and we're not getting bogged down on the wall. Our feet end up aligning at this stage. If I can, I've moved my video anywhere. I put 90 degrees there, but it depends how much you're on your side. Now, for this girl, she won't be at 90, but if she was, it wouldn't be a problem. But she's probably more, I don't know, probably around 60, 70 degrees, maybe around there. So they're at more of a diagonal position. Like we said, this is more akin to a freestyle backstroke turn than it is a breaststroke fly turn. But I think if you were at 90 degrees, it wouldn't be a tragedy. It might be one of those little details that we could pick on, Liam.
Yeah, literally.
and like we said with all the other turns, a knee flex of 90 degrees to make sure you can actually generate maximum force. And this is where, again, links to land training and S&C, having great squat technique, i.e. being able to squat without your knees going over your toes at the front of it, being able to get deep into the squat with your hip position. If you struggle with that, you're going to struggle with getting into this position on a wall, especially in the water. And obviously, the less force you're going to produce, which is going to slow you down. So, fundamentally, the push off the wall is the second fastest part of the entire race after the start.
One point you said about flexibility, this turn, it's being good at flexibility, even stretching to, make sure that you're actually ready for stuff like this. It is key.
Absolutely. And it's a huge thing. Like I will call it physical preparation. It's kind of like the key component of what land training does for us as age group and youth athletes in swimming. Obviously the biggest thing we want to prevent injury. That's absolutely the number one part of what we do S&C wise and pre-pool and everything that Mike is involved in. That's number one priority. The second key priority is allowing you guys to get into positions. So, whether it's a turn, like to get yourself over there, to be able to get into a proper squat to drive off the wall, that's the second key priority. And I think the third one as well is creating and generating coordination. Because this turn, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, Liam, but this is probably one of the more complex movements.
100%.
Yeah, get it right. Once you're there, it's fine. It feels like nothing. You think to yourself, why did I ever have a problem with this? But it can be a complex movement because it's very different, and it's a newer technique as well. So it's one of those things that can be a little bit difficult to pick up.
Definitely.
Right. Awesome. Well, plant's the easy bit. Look at that.
Simple.
Don't have much to say about that. Right. Drive. The good bit. Get into streamline. So obviously, at this point, arms are fully streamlined. Shoulders and legs should be fully extended, as is very nicely demonstrated. Nice little push off on her side there as well. So pushed off on her side, and as she moves through the underwater phase or the dry phase, she'll rotate her body onto her front or onto her breast, as they've called it here. You happy for me to move forward into the next bit?
Yeah, I think one key point on that would be to be, pushing off, like it says here, push off on your side and rotate. Now you're on breaststroke, so you need to be past 90 onto your front. Otherwise, they'll be like, well, you're on your back and you're doing breaststroke. So, yeah, and you know what some of the officials are like? Hawks. All right.
Well,
So, yeah, it just needs to be making sure that you are, going onto your front. You leave the wall on your side. That is like the line,
mhm. Well, it
So,
makes it's that profile to the water.
yeah.
If you're on your side, that you're going to cut through the water much more effectively, especially when you're moving at rapid speed as you've pushed away. I mean, if I can just, I mean, yeah. So she's already this is the next slide anyway, but she's on her front there, preparing herself for her underwater pull out phase. But you can already see that it's probably about 3.5 meters of push and glide. She hasn't started her pull out yet. Now, definitely a note for our swimmers in terms of the younger guys. It's all when you're underwater and you're holding that streamline in that glide position. The moment you feel yourself starting to slow down, initiate that pull out with control, calm, all of that. Because I think one of the things that I do see is that there's almost it's a confusion about, well, how long do I do this for? Because we talk about how important streamline is. Now, it's super important in so many ways, but just willy-nilly holding it's not going to do you any good. It's just going to, in a racing situation, it's going to slow you right down. It may look nice, but it's not going to make you go fast. So you can, like, as we can see, she's pushed up on her side by 3.5 meters. She's rotated herself onto her front. She's clearly moving well through the water, and there's no next line on this, but she's pretty much about to initiate that first part of the breaststroke pull out. I mean, we can kind of tap into this a little bit, Liam, that, the breaststroke pull out, it's about just knowing, I mean, we talked about feel so much, that it's about feeling that momentum, and knowing what your own beats are, so if you feel yourself slowing, hit it.
Yeah. It's like, it's timing, breaststroke, I would say, is one of the harder strokes, only purely to the fact of the timing of stuff. And the pull out is, it's all about timing. It's all about feeling when you're slowing down. Again, depth brings a lot into it. If you're going too deep, how are you going to try and get gradually back up instead of just coming up like a banana? There's so much into it. It's a lot of it back to feel. It's all about feel.
Absolutely. And from a medley perspective, breaststroke is and always will be the make or break stroke.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been countless potential amazing medley swimmers who fly back in free, loving it. Breaststroke.
I may have told a story to some of the younger ones about one swimmer, 100 IM short course, and literally fly back freestyle. Underwaters were like 10-15 meters every single time, just blitzed it. But as soon as went from the backstroke to breaststroke, I think, and I remember this at the time, we all stood together, we all turned around, because it was one of them things where we were just like,
no,
it's just not his thing. He still went sub-minute, which is crazy, but it was that breaststroke where we all just went, oh no, is he finished yet? He's finished. Right, let's go.
I think we've all seen what if moments on breaststroke. If only I coached a swimmer at university level who was, other three strokes were top notch. Breaststroke wasn't his bag, and I just always thought how good a medley swimmer that they could be if that breaststroke was just there. But I think, some people have it, some people don't. It is, breaststroke it's one of those ones that there's a natural way of dealing with it, and some people just struggle a little bit more than others. I'm a believer, though, that no stroke is out of anyone's capability if you're willing to work 100%. At it. So, which is why we promote working on all the strokes as much as we possibly can for as long as we can. You don't want to. I don't think you can ever write anyone off if they're willing to work for that. All right, so
just a disclaimer on that boy. He was an older swimmer. He wasn't just like a 12-year-old where we go, oh, he's doing breaststroke. No, maybe not. He was an older athlete.
I'm sure he was chuckling to himself when the breaststroke came around.
Yeah, he knew.
Brilliant. Right, so hopefully these videos play out relatively well when you watch back. But if they don't, go on to Off the Blocks and you can find them. Like you said, there is age group swimmer videos as well, where younger kids are filmed doing it as well, just to give you a different perspective. But this first one is a right arm turn, and then the next one with the lad that's in there is a left arm turn, just to show what it looks like from both sides, and to reiterate Liam's point about hitting on your left, push off on your left, hitting on your right, push off on your right. Right, let's get it going. Like that underwater timing.
Not bad.
A little bit steep into the first stroke, but quite nice fly kick timing. Do you want to play that again, Liam, or should we watch the left one and then maybe go back through them again?
Yeah, watch the left one and we'll go back through.
Awesome. Boom. I do feel like I have to say that the gent there did look a little bit less comfortable doing the turn than the girl did.
100%.
Yeah, you can almost it almost seems like maybe he would naturally go to the right, but they just wanted him to obviously go to the left.
One thing he did do well, and I think was if we paused it where he's going into the wall, how he's reaching down, and this we said this earlier in the slides how important it is to use that arm there. So with that arm's coming over, he's pushed his head down, and he's touching the wall, under the water level, and he's used again. It's just using that momentum that you're bringing in, all that speed, and using that to help you with the turn. This is why we said earlier, this turn is much more, it's easier to flow through this turn than it is the other ones, because the other ones you're touching and doing the complete opposite thing. So touch, backflip, or touch, go. Whereas this one, you are using that speed and maintaining it around and off.
Absolutely. So
you hit that well.
If anyone needed a justification to why the crossover turn is one more challenging but two more beneficial, then you've heard it in one sentence right there. Right, let's quickly run through them again. Oh, no, switch sides. Gotta get my mouse going. There you go. So this is the right arm one again.
Again, keep pushing the head down, snapping nice and tight.
Nice. And then back in.
And the difference you'll see as well with these guys is, when you do the backflip turn or you do the touch turn, how you stay on the wall much longer than these guys do.
Well, it all comes down to probably less than 0.7, 0.8 of a second. Probably, I think if you look at the best in the world, that's probably the amount of time they're actually spending on the wall. I mean, you even look at something like freestyle backstroke turns are a good example. We talked about obviously being on the balls of your feet and driving away. It's almost like throwing a tennis ball against the wall and you're off there. Efficient, fast, change of direction. But when you see younger athletes trying to figure all of this out as they grow and they get older, you sometimes see the heels of the foot end up getting trapped, or even on the balls of the feet stopping and pausing for a second. And some of that can sometimes be that temptation to rest. And I think we didn't say it last week, but I know we said it on the freestyle backstroke video that we've always got to make sure. And I think if there's anything you take away from this, then I think this is probably a big umbrella message that turns are not there for resting.
100%.
They are absolutely not there for resting. And if anyone ever says they are, then talk to us. we will debate that very vigorously.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But of course, in saying that, we appreciate the temptation that is there, especially when you're under pressure, you're fatigued. It's difficult. Turns are hard to execute well under pressure and when you're tired. But
the last turn is the one that's the most important.
Absolutely.
All of them are important, but the last one is because, like you said, you are fatigued, you're tired, you're going into that last turn. If you just go, I can't do this one. Okay, I'll just flop round. Well, if someone next to you's just nailed it,
It's make or break.
It is. It is. We can't reinforce it enough. We can't.
Well, I think you put it into an even bigger context that fun. I mean, I've always taught people that when you make a final, like when you're at nationals or regionals or even a counties or whatever it is, you make a final. What time you do is irrelevant. You can get rid of that thought process because what becomes relevant is the race, and what wins races is executing skills under pressure. And those who have practiced the deepest, if that makes sense, and they've paid the most attention to it, they've challenged themselves. They've probably failed more times than they've succeeded, but they've put themselves into this territory where they're not worried about getting it wrong because they know they will get it wrong. But they put themselves into that area. Those are the people who will come out on top. You can only physical fitness has its limits. And especially when you look at Olympic finals, for example, those guys are as fit as each other. There's not a lot of difference between first and eighth in terms of what they can physically do and how impressive they are. But what comes, for me, it's two key things, Liam. It's technique and execution of it, and it's mental skills. Those are the two things that define the best athletes. You can train 12 times a week all you want. Does that make you a great swimmer? No. And if it did, everyone would do it.
It's what you do. It's what you do.
Absolutely.
And I know I've heard you say this a lot of times, Chris. When you're doing IM sets or anything related to that, giving this crossover turn a go. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong.
Yeah.
It's one of them where the more you do it, again, it's the same as everything. The more you do it, the more it gets in your brain. The more you'll understand how it works. So just because you did it once and you've gone, actually, no, I don't know, I'm not a fan of that, and just putting it aside and not doing it, you're not going to get any better at it. So really, really giving it a shot every single time in training, whatever it is, even if it goes wrong. I may laugh at you, but I'm joking. just look down the far end of the pool, just see someone stuck upside down. I'm like, what are you doing? What's going on?
See feet in the air.
Literally.
to be fair to our swimmers, and I think this is quite a big testament actually to who our athletes in Team Bath AS are. I feel like pretty much everyone has just got this sense of humor about them that things go wrong, they know it. Let's just have a laugh about it because what can you do? And I think it's a really great trait to have. I think
100%.
Being able to see the light side of challenge, and you get. I mean, I used to rip myself all the time as an athlete. If it wasn't going well, I'd just be like, "Oh, well, this ain't going well, is it?" Make a bit of fun. I mean, what else can you do at that point?
Exactly.
Other than have a bit of a laugh about it.
Have a laugh, and you learn from it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go, guys. You've got some lessons in life too.
Yeah, beautiful stuff.
All right, well, that's the end of this one. We've probably jabbered on for more than we needed to on this one, but
Most likely.
I think that works pretty well for us, Liam. We like to talk. We like to talk. So this is kind of unofficially the end of this little streak of turn videos, but I mean, I'm sure we could go as we move forward. We can go into some fly to back even and breast to free. I mean, they're not that dissimilar from the actual fly and breaststroke turns themselves, but we can all, if you guys are interested, we can always go into that depth again. Maybe an idea. Again, this is more requests than anything else for you guys watching. If anyone wants us to kind of go through some race video or anything like that from top performers and kind of talk about the process that we've talked about, how they approach it and just how it fits, if that makes sense, then if that's something you want, then let us know. More than happy to do it. And we can drop more technique tidbits and all of that.
I think one good thing as well would be if you guys could actually send in questions. If me and Chris haven't answered anything that you wanted answering in any of the turns or starts or whatever, just send it in and we'll go through in like one video, just going through questions.
Like Q&A.
And no questions are stupid questions, so just ask away.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mindset that I would put out for this one, Liam, is I absolutely agree. There's no silly questions. Unless it is literally a ridiculously formulated question that you've just come up
Yeah.
with to be silly.
It's
That's
just,
different.
it's just nothing. It's like, what do you have for breakfast? Like, what's that got to do with turns?
Yeah, so there is a caveat to that one. But yeah, if there's anything you're not sure about or anything that you, again, like Liam said, that we haven't answered, then please just ask, because it's an opportunity to learn. I mean, myself and Liam, we listen to, we'll hear other coaches talk about skills or whatever it is, a whole multitude of things. We go on courses and all this stuff. I think the moment you stop learning and think that you have it, or think that you know the perfect way, I feel like that's a problem.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different ways of looking and approaching something, and the more you know about different ways of doing it, the more we can, as coaches, customize it for different people and have the experience for that. But for you guys as well, you can experiment. You might pick up this little nugget of information that maybe we haven't talked about, and you tell us, and we're like, wow, that's amazing. Like, let's tell everyone that, because that's a brilliant thing. I think me and Liam are both humble enough to say that, we know some stuff, but we don't know it all. And I don't think we ever will.
It's one of them things as well. You can learn so much, and you don't have to agree with everything someone says. You can take away little bits to help benefit you. You don't have to be like, hear one person go, oh my God, that is it. That's the one, And I know, especially, from my coaching, that's what I've done. I've listened to, and some coaches, I'll listen, I'll look, see what they do. And I'm go, oh, that's a great idea, but I wouldn't do it that way. I would do it in my own little way. You know what I mean? So that's how you learn. Everyone's individual, but the more you learn, the more knowledge you get, the better.
Yeah. And to wrap that up, like, anything that you guys see, like what Liam's just described, whether you see it, you hear it, you talk to another swimmer about it, bring it to us, like, run it past us. Like, I definitely wouldn't advocate as athletes that you pick something up, don't talk to your coach about it, and just go and do it, because if we don't know you're doing it, then we're like, well, we can't help you then. It might, we'll see. Oh my God, where'd that come from? Like, run it past us. If we think it's a kooky idea, we'll tell you it's a kooky idea. But if it's something worth looking at, we'll absolutely look at it. But that's what we want, though. I know for me as a coach, I want to have that, like Liam described, as that two-way street. It's great when that happens. It feels collaborative, and that's what I think. That's what we're after. Right. So if you've got this far with us chatting away today, then thank you.
Subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. There we go. Gonna have to start doing that, I reckon. Yeah, start getting on the point and going on. Like, subscribe.
Exactly, yeah.
Next week, we're going to take a little bit of a dive into some psychology stuff. So a bit of a different take, a bit of a different thing. But I've got a good friend of mine I'm talking to tomorrow called James Lambden, who's a psychologist at the University of Bath. So someone I know quite well. And he's going to talk about, we're going to have a bit of a chat about motivation and resilience and what those things mean and how they are maybe slightly different than you imagine. So it's going to be an interesting talk. So hopefully that's got you on a thread a little bit. All right, so thanks for joining us, Liam. As always, been a pleasure.
Been a dream.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
See you later on.